Paula Llewellyn opens up like never before.
There is no situation that Paula Vanessa Llewellyn has not faced.
From landmark cases to personal challenges.
I have sacrificed a lot of family time sometimes.
Join us for an in-depth conversation.
What's next for Paula Vanessa Llewellyn?
Oh, rest. For
there
a
are
few
whispers
weeks.
that you may be the next Attorney General being considered for that. Do you deny any truth to that?
Mr.
Do you deny any truth to
Mr.
that?
Dennis.
That's Lead Story Prime this Tuesday, September 23 at 8 p.m. right here on CVM TV and streaming live on YouTube.
Join us next week when we conclude our discussion with Dr. Chambers on his success in the Tourism Enhancement Fund's Special Tourism Innovation Incubator Program and how he has been able to turn his innovative idea into a successful business.
Hello and welcome to Lead Story Prime. I'm Giovanni Dennis. Now in 2008, with more than 2 decades of courtroom experience, our guest became the first woman and the youngest person to be appointed Director of Public Prosecutions. 17 years later, after overseeing and leading the transformation and modernization of the office, leading multiple high-profile cases and becoming one of Jamaica's household names, Director of Public Prosecutions Paula Llewellyn is demitting office. Well, she demitted office on Friday. Now, we spoke with her last Friday, September 19, her last day on the job. Ms. Llewellyn, welcome. What has it been like going to work over the past month, knowing that you're coming to the end of this phase of your life?
Well, I have every now and again been reflecting on the years that I've spent in the system. And with all the challenges that I recall, I have been able to tell my staff, who several of them will come to me to ask me how do I feel. I confirm to them that I am very proud and feel privileged that I got to live my passion, and that if I had it to do all over again, I would have chosen the same career path.
You speak about a privilege to live your passion, and speaking at the opening of the Michaelmas term of the Home Circuit Court, you described it, in fact, as a privilege of your life. What do you mean by that?
A lot of people work, and either they go or bounce from place to place to place, and at the end of the day, they will express dissatisfaction with where they have worked. Some find ultimate satisfaction, some never do. They end up working just to be able to pay the bills. I consider myself very privileged to have been able to spend the better part of my day living a passion, which was to prosecute and to give public service.
I just speak about public service. You're always accessible to the public. Before you, the former DPP, Ken Pantry, he wasn't a media person, wasn't friendly. I've spoken to colleagues who said, boy, they just couldn't have access to the office. You are the exact opposite. Why? Why did you decide to do that?
Well, to be fair to Mr. Pantry, I think it has to do with the particular culture of the times. In the same way that there was once a time when women would never have been recruited to work at the office of the DPP. And in fact, we have a picture in the conference room where you have all men in their wigs and their gowns. And these included people like Frank Phipps, Lloyd Barnett, who started as prosecutors. So going through the years up to Mr. Panch's time, offices like the DPP, the Attorney General's Chambers, Chief Justice, were revered and looked at in a particular way by people within the system. So it was somewhat cloistered. So the whole issue of transparency and accountability has really evolved, I believe, through Mr. Panch's time that you really had this emphasis on it. But luckily for me, perhaps given my age, I believe I was 47 when I became DPP, and perhaps being somebody who liked to consider herself to be a communicator, my vision of where the office needs to go in terms of transformation included making sure that we answer the clamor of the public for transparency and accountability.
And as you speak about that, I want to delve a little further in that right now. You also hinted at something I want to come to very shortly, being a woman in a male-dominated profession. But you started this practice of giving very detailed statements, explaining reasons for some of your decisions. Why did you think that was important?
Because that is the only way, through the media, who would be the main transmitter to the public, that we could explain or validate the concerns of the public who couldn't understand why what they would think in the court of public opinion, why when one looked at the court of law, sometimes it did not align. And I believed that it would help to enhance the confidence of the public in the administration of justice.
And certainly the people who were before you, some people as well were of the opinion that, boy, as we say in Jamaican terms, boy, you chat too much.
Oh, yes.
How do you respond to that?
Oh, yes. I used to hear a little bit of that from, dare I say, the old timers. But as I indicated to you, it was a cultural thing. Because, let me be a little risky, we are coming from a time when, in terms of class and culture, when it comes to some of these entities, where the head of the entity, the highest ranking individual, was really regarded as a king. So, with that came certain privileges, and part of the privilege was to be able to be what I would say a cloistered virtue. And it was only if you feel like, if instinctively you thought you may want to do so, that you needed to look over your glasses and say, perhaps I may share, but if I don't share, it's neither here nor there, because I am king.
Yeah. Do you regret changing that approach, or any time that you feel like, perhaps I was too accessible here?
No, not at all. And remember, I was a young DPP, and that was just part of my vision. And what I have recognized, not only was I educating the public, but I was educating the media, who hitherto, with the greatest of respect, tended to take a very superficial look,
approach, yeah.
Right, in the way that you looked at the justice system.
For example?
Well, assumptions would be made, and then you would go to the defense counsel, and you would get their take on it. And usually we in the system would say, but that's nonsense. The law says A, B, C, D, E. But what would happen? Because everybody was always fixated on the defense, I found that it was the rare media practitioner outside of Barbara Gale who lived in the courts, who would take a deep dive to try to themselves understand the system so that they can properly explain it in a holistic and a balanced way. When I started giving access to the office, to the media, then you found a balance coming in the reportage. And we are now in a situation where, especially in high public interest matters, the media now almost never takes a one-sided approach. If they get something from the defense, they always try to get the prosecutors
and do you take
and vice versa.
Credit for that sort of change? I mean, coming from
Yes.
Barbara Gale, may her soul rest in peace, more
Yes.
than 40 years working at the Gleaner covering court reporting, just
Brilliant
for background for some of
journalist.
my
Yes.
viewers. Indeed, she is. But do you take credit for the change in that approach?
I think I could. I mean, so many members of the media, not the media, yes, and members of the public who will come up to me every day, and they would say, Miss Llewellyn, I didn't expect to see you in the supermarket just like this here. I said, well, I'm a human being and I need to eat. But seriously, members of the public have told me that for the first time, they understood what the Office of the DPP does. And it has evolved in respect of the complexity of roles and functions. But when I send out press releases, especially in high public interest matters, now in the days of social media, people are able to dissect it, look at it. Some people may even look at the case law or look at the extract, and they are edified and educated. Because I am the DPP now who has had to function in the era of social media. And it's no easy task, because also giving access to the office ensures that there is accuracy in the reportage, not only of the media, but at least people in social media have a means to get an accurate report from the source.
I'm almost up on a break, but did that put additional stress on the office to ensure that you have everything that you're reporting is correct, because you're under now this scrutiny, you're choosing to open up access to the office, access to yourself as well, changing the whole culture? Did that put a little bit of pressure, extra pressure on your office?
Well, Mr. Dennis, given the amount of things I had to do to transform the office, remember, when I took over, you had about 23 or 24 prosecutors. You had less than 8 administrative staff. You had no paralegals. You had 1 air conditioning unit in the entire multi-story office, and that was in the director's office. You had no computers except for 1 little one in the library. You had no laptops. We were almost Neanderthal, looking back to where we are now. So that would have just been one other thing that I would have had to do in transforming the office.
I want to speak to you a little bit more about that in terms of how you transform the office, but we are upon our first break. Stay with us here on Lead Story, this special edition of Lead Story. We're speaking with the outgoing Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Vanessa Llewellyn. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Apps Designs Jamaica. Since 2012, we have been bringing businesses to life through mobile applications, websites, and custom software development. We design and develop iOS and Android mobile applications, websites, cloud-based platform, customized software, and artificial intelligence integration. Turn your ideas into a powerful mobile app. Contact us today at 876-671-4598 or visit us at www.appsdesignja.com.
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction, 'cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music keeps on playing, and the people them I say we are my show tonight.
Welcome back to this special edition of Lead Story Prime here on CVM TV. We're talking to former Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Llewellyn. Now, a bit of history about Miss Llewellyn. She attended St. Hugh's High School and completed law studies in 1984. She began her career as a clerk of court in St. James that same year before moving to the DPP's office as Crown Counsel. Within 7 years, she was appointed Deputy Director, later becoming the first woman to act as director in 1999 and the first female senior director in 2003. Now, from a personal perspective, Ms. Llewellyn, as a female leader, that's also significant for you because almost everything you were doing was unprecedented. And you mentioned, coming from a place where just all men before you. What was that like navigating that? Was there any pushback, in fact?
Let me put it this way. I was conscious of the fact that I would be occupying a space that was hitherto only occupied by the patriarchy. So I had a very good mentor, my great mentor and friend, Mrs. Justice Marva McIntosh, who was a senior prosecutor to me when I came to the office. After she went on the bench, she later became a senior puisne judge. And she tried to prepare me. But even having been through the system herself, and I recognized that my mettle would be tested because there were elements of the patriarchy who resented the fact that I had got the nod. But what I do find working with men especially is that once they respect your work, then that respect goes right through. But I am conscious of the fact that because the position operating under the Constitution was a classic power position, you will have elements who resent the fact that you are dealing with an independent mind, that you are not beholden to anybody. Because if I dare say, coming from the interview at the Services Commission, it was purely on merit. I had always been assigned previously to be on the front line doing complex cases. I prosecuted the first case dealing with DNA, and I prosecuted one of the first cases dealing with cell site analysis, dealing with terrorism. So I was accustomed to being a pioneer, but luckily I was courageous and I had a broad back. So what I decided was the fact that my gender was female, was really neither here nor there. I know when you're a woman in a power position like that, you're only as good as the last good thing that you have done. And you have to sometimes work twice as hard as your male colleague to get the recognition. But I embraced it.
What have other women said to you where that is concerned? You're a pioneer almost in everything that you've done in your profession. Surely, you say it's neither here nor there for you, but for many women, you're an inspiration.
Well, I'm going to tell you, because of some of the challenges I used to face, even as a senior deputy director, being the first woman to be a senior deputy director, I got more into doing motivational presentations. So I'm known for that. I will guest speak, and that was my way of giving back. So I guest speak at a lot of functions, service clubs, schools, business entities, and that was one of my ways of giving access to persons in respect of showing the fact that the DPP was there to serve you. Very often, and I think we are coming from that, a lot of people, when they get into high rank, somehow it flips psychologically, and they fall in love, or their ego falls in love with the high rank. And all of a sudden, instead of those people serving the people, they consider it is that the people are serving them. So I always used to make sure that I did these things so that it would help to ground me and remind me every day that although under the Constitution I wielded great power, that I had to have noblesse oblige, and I had to remember that humility must be the underbelly of success.
That you had to have what?
Humility.
Before that?
Oh, nobis oblige.
Yes, yeah, you have to explain what that means.
That is a Latin phrase, which means that, in effect, because you wield great power, you must do it with grace and a certain sensitivity so that you never abuse that power.
What motivates you? Why did you become a lawyer?
Well, because, first of all, when I was at primary school, St. George's, I used to be very shy.
You?
Yes,
shy.
I was a bookworm. I was a voracious reader. I considered myself to be an ugly child. But where I starred was in reading. I could be beaten. And vocabulary. By the time I went to high school, by the time I was 13, 14, in fact, I read so much that I used to want to be a librarian because I read so quickly that, nothing could satisfy me. I could read 3 Nancy Drew books when I was at primary school in an afternoon instead of mopping out the place as my mother asked me to do. But by the time I was 14, I discovered that I did have a love of English language, but I was a frustrated actress. And then my desire to become a lawyer was born because I thought that that was the way to marry both concepts and then to become an advocate where I'm able to communicate and articulate and use the language. One of the awful things about the times we are living in now, that the whole art, for example, of conversation and the use of words, a lot of persons no longer appreciate it. But
everybody Googling and using ChatGPT.
That is exactly it. But that will not really happen to me because I love to communicate. And then I love drama. I am told that as an advocate, I have a flamboyant style, so I'm the type who will, arms outstretched. So the
very
combination,
colorful.
yes, so I am told.
But it seems though, getting to that expressive level that you are now, it didn't come easy because you mentioned you felt ugly as a child. We know we're coming from a country where in a country it's very stratified. Classism, colorism, racism, big issue coming for a carryover from our colonial past. Why did you feel that way?
Well, I think because, I just was an unattractive child. I used to wear these horrible cat-eye glasses with these big bows in my hair. I don't know why my mother did that. And I just didn't have a good self-concept. But when it came to reading, I couldn't be beaten. And that, for me, was where my beauty lay. The fact that I knew words, I loved words, and I was able to articulate. Although I spoke with a lisp. But then, guess what? I consider it now as part of my charm. Back then, it was another aspect of the unattractiveness. But now, with the open space.
Yeah, so you owned that list that you have.
Well, that is it, and I've learned to control it.
You mentioned that you couldn't be beaten when it came on to speaking and knowing
and
words.
Vocabulary.
Did that contribute to why you decided to stay a prosecutor?
Well, not really. I am an advocate, and that's why I have been named King's Counsel or Queen's Counsel. I am an advocate. However, I have a genuine passion in terms of justice for giving voice to the underdog. And because if you look at Parliament throughout the ages, it has always been dominated by defense counsel. The victims, the pendulum of justice, must swing in both directions. Yes, the accused has a lot of rights. The case law says that the overriding objective of any trial is fairness to the accused. But we are now in an era over the last 20, 30 years that recognizes that victims also have rights. And I'm very passionate about that. So I have been privileged to have prosecuted against, over the last 30 years, you name the King's Counsel or the Queen's Counsel or the very senior lawyer practicing at the criminal bar, I've prosecuted against them. And when the prosecution has been successful in some of the awful cases that I have done, nothing pleases me more than to have the appreciation, the gratitude of a victim's relative or a witness who believed that all was lost because they don't have any money to pay any high-powered lawyer. And I've had to explain that the state pays us prosecutors a salary every month, and we have to make sure that we do our best to present the best possible case.
Yeah, and I want to come to that in terms of some of the horrible cases that you've done that you mentioned.
Goodness.
I do want to continue in the next segment. But before that, you've managed to make several changes at the Office of the DPP.
Yes.
We spoke about it in the previous segment.
Yes.
But are there any changes that you didn't manage to do that you wanted to implement?
Well, we have started digitization. We also, in fact, I was the one who had to engage the ministry for us to get a website. Not even that we had. Now we have up to 58 prosecutors. I have gotten approval to get more. So when I demit office, we have approval to go up to 70 lawyers. Each prosecutor is assigned a laptop. Each prosecutor is assigned a COG. This has been happening for years. And the office is fully air-conditioned.
Coming from one?
Coming from one air-conditioning unit in the office, because we had renovations the other day. So we have now state-of-the-art conference rooms, we have witness rooms, we have a $100 million high-density filing system that holds our physical files in many different areas of the office. And we are also embarked on digitization, which will allow us to electronically disclose files or send files in soft copy to Crown Counsel anywhere on the island. I
want to hear from you where your successor you think needs to take the office, but you have to take that on the other side of this break. We are up on another break here on Lead Story Prime. The time is going by so quickly, and there's so much more to speak to former Director Paula Llewellyn, former Director of Public Prosecutions Paula Llewellyn about. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Millions of people are attacked by harmful mouth bacteria. The root cause of bad breath, gum problems, cavities, plaque, and tartar. That's why Colgate combined the best science and technology in Colgate Total. Unlike others, its superior formula fights bacteria and creates a powerful protective barrier for up to 24 hours to prevent them from coming back. Take control of your oral health with Colgate Total.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
It's time!
Welcome to High School Pitchside. We have another fascinating episode for you.
More matches, more big clashes.
Let's talk about some of the big rivalries coming up this week.
More of your favorite features.
And trust me, you won't fall asleep in this history class.
And of course, we always want to hear from you.
Hear from your alma mater's players and coaches in Team Talk.
You know we can't leave you out. So send us your messages on social media and watch us react on FanView.
And you know we love a good little debate, right, Gio?
We've got you covered all season long on High School Pitchside.
High School Pitchside, your ultimate guide to all things schoolboy football, Thursdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
Start your journey with a Jane Bank Small Business Loan, with small business loans with as little as $10,000 and up to $4 million.
The time is 8:30.
Welcome back to Lead Story Prime here on CVM TV. This special edition of Lead Story Prime, we're speaking with former Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Llewellyn. A very absorbing conversation so far. Ms. Llewellyn, you were telling me in the previous segment about whenever you win a case, when the family members feel like they've given up on everything and how they feel.
Well, first of all, the prosecution does not win cases, we succeed. Because a prosecutor is supposed to be like a minister of justice. We don't strive in the way that defense counsel will strive, this win at all costs. Our responsibility is to put forward the best available case. Use our intellectual acuity, our levels of research, because we're advocates as well. But at the end of the day, if we see that we don't have a case, then our responsibility is to offer no evidence.
Donald Zeke's Phipps, the 2007 Good Samaritan case, the 1992, 1994 Maryland, you've overseen many
cases. I've
significant cases there. Three that stand out to you.
Well, the Mary Lynch case, I was up against Frank Phipps, Queen's Counsel. The Sonia Jones case, that was a special assignment at the parish court.
You know, you have to explain some of these even briefly for my viewers, you know.
All right.
Mary Lynch.
The Mary Lynch case was the O.J. Simpson case for Jamaica. Mrs. Lynch was a well-known socialite, and she was married to one of the vice presidents of the then NCB, and he disappeared. And subsequently he was found, well, his bones were found somewhere in Smoky Vale. Obviously he had been murdered. So we had to use circumstantial evidence case, and it was a cause célèbre that had everybody on the edge of their seats.
What do you mean by cause célèbre?
Cause célèbre means that it was a famous case, in the same way that the O.J. Simpson case was a famous case. And of course, Mr. Phipps is senior to me, but it's a case that I thoroughly enjoyed, and everything about me that loves drama, it was in the case. And the rest is history.
They made a play out of that.
Yes,
Rosie Morris starting after that as well.
It was a very, very stressful case to prosecute.
Why?
Because you had some 60-odd exhibits that you had to put in. It was circumstantial evidence case, and then you had to make sure that the evidence, remember, we had no corpus delicti, we had no body per se, we only had some bones and the skeleton, the head. So we had to call the dental surgeon, we had to prove who it was that was actually killed, because you have to prove every element of the indictment. And of course, I was up against one of the great adversaries, who was a former prosecutor himself, Mr. Frank Phipps. But we have done several cases together, as I have against Ian Ramsey, Lord Anthony Gifford, Earl Witter, Bert Samuels.
So that was one case.
Smalls.
One of three. Tell me another one.
Well, the Sonia Jones case, I was specially assigned by my predecessor to prosecute that matter in the parish court, because we do that too, go to the parish court on special assignment. Sonia Jones was a very prominent Caucasian Jamaican who was a top socialite, and she was an attorney, and she sat on all the different committees of the bar, and at the time her brother, a very gracious and very classy gentleman, was the president of the Bar Association, and she was successfully convicted. I prosecuted, Mr. Phipps was on the other side, and Garth McBean for fraudulent conversion.
Third case.
And so that was one great case, because I did some of the best cross-examination of an accused in my life.
Because she was also an attorney.
She was an attorney, but not only that, she was a brilliant speaker. Brilliant speaker. So it was really a great tug of wills. And I would like to think I won the day.
You won?
I won the day in terms of the interchange between us.
Is it that you're just being, you know, a little pedantic, or with prosecutors don't win, we succeed? Because really, actually, a win is a win.
Yes, but we are professionals. So if it is that you do a very good piece of cross-examination, which is recognized by your peers, then you know you have done very well. But it's not good for a prosecutor in your head to think of the concept of winning the way that defense counsel will think of it, because at all material times, you must be fair.
Yeah. So
in the
that's
process.
2. I want one more from you, that high profile that you remember.
Well, the Good Samaritan case, I did that when I was DPP. And the Stephen Carswell matter as well. The Stephen Carswell
and the
matter.
Good Samaritan one, just a bit of
Good
context
Samaritan
and
case
background
involved
for viewers.
one of the
going to
accused
Havendale
was
to
Elephant Man's youngest brother. And unfortunately, these 2 young people, one of them, she had a sister who was an attorney, and the other one had a mother who was an attorney. And unfortunately, in Havendale, they bumped into a motorcyclist and pillion. And unfortunately, instead of reporting it to the police, they decided to try to treat with it themselves. And they took the people to the hospital, but they were okay basically, and then arranged with them to meet them with a crutch, walking crutch. And they were kidnapped. And next thing, they disappeared and their bodies were found up in the hills. And it was very challenging, that case, because I used one of the co-accused who had pleaded guilty to 2 lesser offenses to give evidence against the 2 other accused, the main perpetrators, and we got convictions. But it was a very sad case. And then you had the Stephen Grant matter, which was this Asylum nightclub where a young man was shot 11 times. There again, we basically had circumstantial evidence, but we had a witness who changed his evidence while in the witness box. So I had to use all of my experience. Then the Stephen Carswell matter, that was the Oakland's murder case, where some people thought the poor young lady had been thrown over the balcony, but she had not been. She, I think, was killed in her apartment it was a fatal attraction case, and taken out and taken to hospital by the gentleman who had another story as to how she came to her injuries. And that was another very, very challenging case because the defense brought a pathologist from Canada to come with this theory that she literally she dived off the 4th floor. And we had a very good pathologist who still works in Jamaica, who was able to contradict that successfully.
And outside from those high-profile cases, there
we
must
had
be
the
some
anti-gang cases too, because Jamaica holds a distinction in the Caribbean of having prosecuted a number of anti-gang cases, and the biggest one, which is one of the reasons why I needed 3 or 4 years ago that first extension, so that I could be there to give my experience, not only to complete the renovation of the building, but to assist in terms of using my experience to give guidance, to given the security concerns.
And that's something you clearly want to speak about as well, because there was a lot of pushback from the opposition. The matter went to court. Why did you feel you needed to stay? Well,
the thing is that I had gotten an extension before that, which was
3 years.
Assisted me to finish the anti-gang case, the 33 accused case, as well as the renovations of the building.
Right. So this was the first extension of 3 years granted in 2020.
That is it.
Right.
So there was one other thing that I needed to complete that I have not completed, and that is with great regret. That is the unification. The unification of the office with the clerk of courts. The clerk of courts are the prosecutors in the parish courts, but there's an anomaly in the law where they are they answer administratively to the Chief Justice or to the judges. The policy has been that you should have an amalgamation of prosecutors in the lower courts with the prosecutors in the higher court at the office of the DPP, so that you have one prosecuting service which will help to maintain and enhance the quality of prosecutions in the lower courts where the majority of cases come through.
How did you feel when the sort of accusations and the comments that was coming from some quarters in the society about the reason behind your extension?
You see, the thing about it is, what is unfortunate is that the justice system has never been regarded as a sexy subject by the political class. And this is primarily because a lot of them don't know a whole lot about it. Until I came on the scene, you would be surprised that a lot of people don't even know how the office of the DPP, what it entails. And unfortunately, we are in an era of social media where a lot of people feel they can just say anything and you cannot answer them. I am not on social media except for WhatsApp, and it's only because of my daughter where I'm on WhatsApp, but I'm not on any other social media. You know, so it helps me, and in fact, even with mainstream media, if I am involved in making a decision about something, I deliberately don't watch the news on it. So
why not?
Because if I know I'm going to be making a decision, a ruling, I really don't wish to have my thoughts cluttered. I will hear from my staff, but I try to keep away from it, and that is one of the reasons why I'm not on social media either.
There are sometimes, as I speak about, rulings you're involved with, when you secure a conviction, the judge hands down what the public may feel is a light sentence, the person get off easy, and you sometimes get the criticism for that. We think about a case, for example, in one example, 2017, outrage over a 48-month sentence imposed on Denisha Gregory by the judge following her guilty plea in the horrific killing of her 11-year-old brother, Tariq Gregory, in Manchester in 2011.
I remember it.
Yes. And this was before you had the right, the prosecution had the right to appeal. How did you deal with those situations?
Well, the thing is, here again, we make ourselves available and try to explain the different roles.
Just a second before you continue, I have to take a quick break here on Lead Story Prime. We're speaking with former Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Llewellyn, and the time is simply not enough. Stay with us. We return for our final segment after this quick break.
Every day starts with care. Care that's always close. Supermed Family of Pharmacies is where you go for everything you need. From your morning routine to life's biggest moments. Supermed Family of Pharmacies is always by your side. Whether it's prescriptions or household essentials, trust the care that's close to home. Super happy, super healthy, Supermed.
Where it all begins. The quest to become great. Inspired by those who went before them, these four boys dream of playing in the ISSA schoolboy football competitions.
Will you score this for Casey? Will you score? It's a shot, it's a goal!
And it's a shot, and it's a goal! And Casey has won the Manning Cup, and they will play Clarendon College in the Olivia Shield. And that's what you love to see. They may be rivals, but the camaraderie is what it's all about. Can't wait for the final.
When the bus the man, I want to watch my son play finals on CVM, you know.
But mums, you can't watch it on CVM website, man.
Come on, my son score, my son score, my son score, my son score.
Greatness begins here.
Protecting Jamaica's borders is a key priority for the Jamaica Customs Agency. The JCA will remain vigilant and resolute in effectively fulfilling this mandate. The time brought to you by the Jamaica Customs Agency is
8:45.
Welcome back. We're speaking with the the former Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Llewellyn, here on Lead Story Prime. Ms. Llewellyn, before the break, you were speaking about the Terry Gregory case. You know, it's one of those cases where, again, people felt that, listen, the person got away with a slap on the wrist. How do you deal with your own personal feelings in those sorts of matters?
Well, first of all, you're a professional, so you literally have to have a split screen. One side of you can understand the public angst, anxiety, and the concerns. The other side of you, you are a creature of the law. So sentencing, now we can make submissions to the court. We can point the court to precedents and make a recommendation. But ultimately, sentencing is still the sole purview of the judge. Yes. So the best we can do, if it is very lenient, unduly lenient, and it is appropriate so to do, then we can appeal it. But otherwise, we cannot afford to emote as a professional prosecutor, because if you emote, it may cloud your judgment.
The government, and I wanted to go back to this, had amended the law so that you could extend your tenure, and they mentioned that there were some things you wanted to complete. There was the case coming up, the anti-gang case that you wanted to see through, the renovations that the office you wanted to complete. They took the matter to court, saying it was unconstitutional.
I'm sorry, the law already had allowed for an extension.
It was the second extension where the issue
so I had
come up.
taken
Yes.
advantage of that in order to complete the renovations of the office, which were very extensive.
Right.
And two, to make sure that I was there to assist my staff with that big case, 33-man accused anti-gang case.
But on the second extension, no, the opposition took the matter to court. Was your reinstatement a sort of a vindication for you?
Well, it confirmed that the law was constitutional. That is the amendment of the law. Because as my understanding was, it was just to align the Auditor General and the DPP with what had already been passed for all public servants several years earlier.
And then you stepped aside while that matter was being ventilated.
The Constitution allows you to do that.
You came back in January. You've been there for less than a year, 9 months. In fact, was it worth it?
Yes, because principle is important. There are too many of us in this society who will stand for nothing and die for nothing.
What did you do in the 9-month period? What did you achieve?
Well, the thing is, I am a workaholic, so I'm accustomed to working long hours and working very hard. And I've never really taken any long leave, except when I had my daughter, and that was maternity leave. Otherwise, I'm always working, just with a little 1 month break every now and again, once a year. So I exhaled, and I was able to spend a lot of time with my family, who very often have had to sacrifice in terms of, I'm just so happy that my daughter has turned out beautifully, because I have sacrificed a lot of family time sometimes because I am at the office working.
Did you manage that work-life balance well?
Yes, I had to, and she's turned out pretty well. And in fact, my daughter, who is now 26, she went to Purdue University abroad and did 2 degrees at the same time. So I think seeing her mother being a workaholic empowered her.
Did the office rob you of any personal relationships because of how demanding it was?
Well, it didn't rob me of personal relationships. It robbed me sometimes of a lot of time. So I couldn't indulge in certain things that some of my friends could, because for example, if I was in court in a case and I'm going into court, I'm there 3, 4, 5 weeks, what may be routine for you to have lunch with a friend almost would never happen because I wouldn't have the time. You leave court at 1 o'clock, you have to rush back at 2. If I'm prosecuting a case as DPP, I have to be at work early, or I have to work until 7, 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock to do the correspondence. We have a lot of correspondence. It's 2 jobs that the DPP does, and I wish my successor well. 2 jobs. One is the legal under the Constitution, And you're also designated central authority for mutual legal assistance. You're also the competent authority for extradition. And the other one is the head of department, where you have to have operational plans. You have to do annual reports. You have to deal with procurement, strategic planning. So that is what it entails.
It takes me right now to perhaps one of the biggest and most controversial cases. You speak about not being able to have lunch within a case. The Vibes cartel case, this was one watched by the entire world. Every single move you make, both the initial conviction and the appeals. What was it like having to deal with that case?
Well, remember, I am the leader of my chambers. So when we have any high-profile matter, and this is how we are, the office of the DPP is like a family. And I am the leader of that family. We support each other. I had a good team in terms of Mr. Taylor and Assistant Director, right? But it was an extremely difficult case.
What were the most difficult aspects?
Well, the fact is that the evidence in respect of the technology and the cell phone, and the fact that because you are prosecuting a very high value person, the pressure coming from the public, the fact that every day on the news, after the news, you would see advertisements in respect of the gentleman's records, and the fact that the defense would be there saying all sorts of things every day to the media.
And what was it like prosecuting a case like that?
Well, my staff, because I would pop over there sometimes, it was a lot of pressure. So I had to make sure that in terms of the security, it was okay. And in fact, I recall, it's a matter of record, that several of us, including myself, there were death threats. But we had to just continue to be courageous, ignore it, take care, and continue because it was our public duty.
What was that like, though?
It goes with the territory. Listen to me, Mr. Dennis. You cannot be in this type of job if you do not have testicular fortitude or mental toughness. You have to have a broad back. You have to be resilient.
You're saying this now, though, but in the moment, given the magnitude of the person, at no point you never went to him and be like, wow.
Mr. Dennis, wow. I have been around prosecuting for 41 years. There is no situation that Paul Vanessa Llewellyn has not faced. And that is why I, irrespective of my gender, can talk about having testicular fortitude. It's one of my favorite phrases, yes. Or mental toughness.
What was it like when the Court of Appeal set him free?
I was off at the time, as far as I'm concerned, as a professional. You are disciplined to know that you do your best. The court, you have a function, the court has a function. And if the court has made a decision that is adverse to you, then your duty is to respect it, do your analysis to see what you can learn from it, then you move on.
Do you feel it was
that is what a career, that is what a career prosecutor does. Remember, we are professionals, right? And that is how we mentor our colleagues to be. That's how we are mentored to be. So you don't take it personally, because it's your job. This is what you do every day.
Would there be anything you'd have done differently?
No.
Nothing at all?
No.
You've lost some big cases as well. Any of them have stayed with you?
Well, when you say lost,
well, not succeeded.
You mean that the jury acquitted or the judge acquitted? One or two of the first gang cases that we did as a chambers, the Chief Justice has been doing them. And we thought, yes, the bar was set very, very high. But guess what? We learned from it. And that is how we were able to, we lost them, as you said, but we were able to learn from it and to wheel and come again to tackle that really big case, which I can tell you all over the Caribbean is heralded.
Which really big case? Just some of you. So
the 33, the Klansman case with Andrew Blackman Brad.
Okay.
I had a good team, 2 senior deputies, a deputy director, and the Crown Council, and they did very well as the police. I cannot forget my stakeholders. I've been privileged to work with some great police officers, some good commissioners of correction, court reporters, court staff, and of course the colleagues at my office.
Nearly out of time. What's next for Paula Vanessa Lewin?
Oh, rest.
There are whispers that you may be the next Attorney General are being considered for that. Do you deny any truth to that?
Mr.
Do you deny any truth to that?
Mr. Dennis, I don't indulge in speculation. There's no basis for that speculation.
So you're not denying if there's any truth to it?
I am neither affirming or denying because I don't know. You see, you have to be careful. Don't speculate.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. I'm not speculating, I'm asking.
Perhaps I could say to you, maybe I may want to become a nice housewife.
You know, you've not answered the question.
I may want to become a housewife. You never know.
So it's quite possible. It's possible that you may very well be the next. It's not impossible that you could be the next Attorney General,
Mr. Dennis, I know nothing about that. For the next 4 to 6 weeks, I'm going to exhale, I'm going to order my papers, and I'm just going to get in touch with the mundane things of life that other people take for granted and get accustomed to not having to make so many decisions all at once. And may I say, I wish all the very best for my successor. I wish for them, I hope the public, and I thank the public of Jamaica for all the prayers and all the support that I've always had throughout my career, especially as DPP. And I ask the public of Jamaica to give my successor a similar support. It is a difficult job. It is 2 jobs in one. And I ask, notice I'm not even indicating the gender. I'm asking the public of Jamaica. I thank you. I thank my staff, my wonderful DPP staff family, who I will miss. So many persons have passed through my hands and done well. And it has been a privilege working with them. But I close by asking the public of Jamaica to give my successor all the support, and that person has my very best wishes for the future.
You know who it is already? I know about 4 people have been shortlisted.
You're trying to draw my tongue. I will not allow it.
That doesn't happen a lot at all, where Paula Llewellyn is speechless or appears to be speechless.
I wasn't speechless, I was deliberate. It's called, if I'm batting like a number 3 master batsman, that's a leave alone ball.
You're a good batter, Miss Llewellyn. Well done.
Right,
keep on batting.
Good.
It's a privilege, she says, to have worked with some of the people that she worked with. Well, it is indeed a privilege to have spoken to you for this past hour, Ms. Llewellyn. We have been speaking with the former Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Llewellyn, here on this special edition of Lead Story Prime. I'm Giovanni Dennis. That's all the time we have. We could go another hour easily with Ms. Llewellyn, but she's a very busy woman and we don't have much more time. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned to CVM TV.
Everybody, I'm Yendi, and this is Odyssey with Yendi. In this space, we connect with some of your favorite people as they share their journeys. Here we have some unfiltered conversations as we deep dive into their inspirations, motivations, and experiences to inspire our own